All right, you're set.
Okay, we're set. We got 5 o'clock. Work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and listen to discussion, but there's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings. So first item is discuss the formal agenda. Had an opportunity to kind of review the agenda for this evening. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, we also have the rolling agenda here in front of us. So this carries us all the way through the end of June. And you can see what we have on work session, proclamations, consent items, and business agendas. Any questions or comments on what we have outlined for the next couple months? Okay, and we will reiterate that folks can add things to the agenda, just if an item comes up, we contact the county manager, and we can certainly put it on the docket. Okay, we'll move on to next topic, which is contributions to outside agencies, Human Services Advisory Council recommendations on page 3. And I'll turn over to our Assistant County Manager, Monica Steele.
Thank you, Chair. So as you all know, every year in your budget, currently you allocate $30,000 to contributions to outside agencies, and these are general fund discretionary dollars. And the idea behind these funds is to provide different nonprofit social service agencies an opportunity to have additional funds to provide services that enhance the work that that goes on throughout the county. This year, earlier back in, sorry, I'm drawing a blank of when we came before you. We came before your board a couple months ago to talk about how the distribution process was happening. So oftentimes we get a number of applicants, and their requests might be, you know, $5,000, $10,000, and then they go through all this work and they're getting $1,000, $1,500, and it's kind of being distributed a little bit amongst everybody. It's kind of time consuming for these nonprofit agencies that are small to do that work. And so we had asked your board, which you all agreed to, if we could make a minimum allocation of $5,000. And we also had the caveat that if they had a small request that might only be $1,500 or $3,000 and they qualified, then you would fund that just to that amount. So the county advertised for applications to go through this process. We received a total of 11 applications, and that totaled $68,918 in ask. So obviously we had to score these applications because we only have $30,000 in funding. There's a subcommittee for the Human Services Advisory Committee that reviewed these. It's a subcommittee of 3 folks. They scored them, and then they submitted them with what their recommendations were. Based on those recommendations and the amounts that were being asked, staff went ahead and took their ask with the recommended amount, and based on the scoring, presented that to you all for review. That has $5,000 going to Classic Community Action, which is 100% of their ask. $10,000 going to Lifeboat Services, which is 100% of their ask. $3,000 going to the Classic Emergency Food Bank, which is 100% of their ask. And then First Step Center for Autism and Developmental Disabilities, receiving $4,000 of their $5,000 ask, and Helping Hands Reentry Outreach receiving $8,000 of their $10,000 ask. This is based on the first 3 scoring the highest and the last 2 scoring slightly less. So we funded them both at 80% of their ask because that was the remaining funds available. So at this point in time, if your board so chooses, we would move forward with these recommendations, bringing them to you at the next board meeting, and then these funds would be distributed prior to June 30th of this year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. County Manager. Any questions?
That sounds logical.
Okay.
Perfect. We will move forward and bring it to you at your next meeting then.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. And thanks to the work on the Human Service Advisory Council for scoring those and determining which ones could receive funding. Appreciate their work. Next is the solid waste rates on page 71. And County Council.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. For tonight's agenda item, we're going to be talking a little bit in detail about the solid waste franchise. We're finally kind of in the home stretch here, so hoping to wrap this up quickly. But we just wanted to share some information that we received with representatives from Recology here. So, sure.
Good evening, Commissioner and staff. Thanks for letting us have a minute just to introduce ourselves. We're all with Recology. My name is Dan Blue. I'm the Government Relations Manager for Recology Northern Oregon. And I've been with the company for just over a year and like 4 days. Working with staff for months on the franchise application process, and just wanted to say hi and introduce it. So look forward to working with you as we do, but in different ways in the future. I'll turn it over to you.
Next, thank you guys. We appreciate the time. I'll be brief. Chris Carey, General Manager for Recology of Oregon. That's our sites in Oregon. We have some in Portland. We've got some down coast where we're at. And then we have some in McMinnville, transport stations, compost facilities. We bring you know, some nice energy and resources to bear that I think have been helpful here. Especially in terms of trying to turn up the recycling program if we can, if you guys are interested. So I think that's soon, I'm here as a part of this. And then I'll turn it over to Katie, who runs their local operation.
I've been 15 years, started out as a driver, so I'm really invested in what's going on for this site and everything, so.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
I just can't tease, I can't tease county manager about how long it's taken us to get here.
Lisa, do you know if Dave is on? Dave Hoover?
With waste
With
management.
waste management, yeah.
One question quickly, we have the.
Yeah.
Okay, constituents, everybody's just excited, you know, as far as, especially recycling programs. The one question I still get from everybody is when will they have glass recycling added to the mix? If and when? That's the one I get hit with all the time.
So currently, drop-off is available at a couple of depots. We, as a company, would be happy to provide additional services at the curb. A barrier for us is it takes additional staff, probably takes an additional truck, unless we can figure out a way to collect both curbside recycling and glass in the same truck. But we're happy to look at that at this point in time. We're just focusing on getting that commingled recycling out there as quickly as possible. And as you're going to hear, it's going to take a little time for us to acquire a truck, add an additional FTE to be able to buy those services, but we're going to work on it.
Glass has traditionally been a real problem when you mix it with the single stream or the commingled recycling, because it breaks, then or the vehicles, the merge, the material recovery facilities, not big fan of mixing it. Whenever you can collect it separately, it's ideal. And then also it is straight into a glass processor that we go through sort of digital. There's it's kind of been the trend over the last decade where glass is sort of the last thing that happens to the curve. And in order for that to be viable, you've got to have density and that gets trouble.
Thank you. It is, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the explanation.
All right, so we'll go ahead and. Where did I click with this? There we go. Just a brief history. I know, I think we've all been here for most of this. So back in February 23rd, 2022, the county first passed the solid waste ordinance franchise ordinance. Earlier this year, we amended the ordinance, and one of the big changes was within the solid waste rules. We amended it to allow for the rural and suburban designations. This would still offer different rates for different areas. In February, we received the application from the haulers. And so today we're gonna kind of talk about some of the things in their application and then kind of the process forward. So we'll start with recycling. I should have made this slide a little more exciting with fireworks or something, because I think there is good news here. When we were talking earlier this year, there was concern that we might not be able to reach all the customers in the unincorporated parts of the county for recycling. But the haulers were able to work the numbers and make it work to where we are going to be able to offer it to everybody. It won't be immediate, but eventually we'll be able to reach out to everybody. Also, it's going to be kind of a mandatory service. You can't opt in or out of it. Well, you can opt out and not receive the service, but you're going to be paying for it. But once again, this was kind of done just the only way we can make it work economically. As Dan was talking with Recology, that I think this time frame is about right, 6 to 18 months. You would be hoping, obviously, as soon as possible. With waste management, a little bit quicker, 3 to 6 months. But I want to point out, it's important to know that nobody will be charged for the recycling until they actually receive it. So people aren't going to be worried about paying that bill and not getting the service. So that's kind of what I have to recycling. Any questions from the board?
Well,
Right there.
I know, right? I have a comment. I'm a little concerned about the rates being charged to the customer, even if they are not opting into recycling. So just, it's dependent upon what that rate is, I guess.
And we'll be touching on what the rates are gonna look like. As county council mentioned, in order to make it work, if you left the opt-in versus opt-out option, you may have a string of folks who are opting out, one person opting in. So then from a perspective of charging that one individual, the rate would then have to be significantly higher to allow, and we'll touch on the maps as well in regards to that suburban residential versus or rural residential.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Dan, or is that?
I think we have, in order to be able to make it sufficient, we are having to add a truck from the driver. And if you're only doing a parcel, you still have to add that driver. The costs just get much higher for the people who participate or so to do.
Right, so next slide, just a quick refresher of those definitions that we added. Of course, there's going to be the rural residential. Those are the people who are farther out. And of course, the suburban rural, which is, a little more closer together. I have a pretty good typo on this slide, so I'm just gonna kind of skip the wording by that. So
I didn't even catch
yeah, I know it's
Now I'm gonna have to read it.
yeah, we have to read it closely. And one important thing to know before we get into the maps, and I know Dan explained this really well in our meeting, so if I don't do it, go ahead and add to it. But as the services were growing in the area and companies were taking over other companies, there's been some inconsistency in the rates. So some people, even though they might live in a really rural area, were being charged the suburban rate or vice versa. So there could be neighbors out in Napa who are paying different rates at this time. As part of this process, we're gonna, kind of take care of that, clean it up, and everybody's gonna have a consistent rate throughout the area. So. All right,
You have any questions?
yeah.
That's only slightly frightening of a statement. Thank you.
All right, so here's a map of how we work with mostly Recology to come up with the two zones. We try to use the laser pointer down here, the wide area, that's where waste management is going to be working. Their area is kind of all the same, so they're just going to charge one rate. They're not going to divide it up between the two zones. But as far as Recology, you have the rural here, partially colorblind, some is that greenish blue. And then we have the suburban area over here. And I think this is a good time just to throw out a reminder that this is just for the unincorporated parts of the county. It doesn't affect anybody within city limits.
The city limits. Where we see.
So I just have this is just another closer up map of the north area there. And the south area. So any questions about how we've divided that up or? All right, so we do have some sample rates here, and I do have to kind of make a correction. This one was kind of on me. When we had the haulers submit their rates. We were hoping that we could get this all in place before July first. So for Recology, they gave us the rates as they'd be right now. And it's my understanding that normally July first is when you make your rate adjustments. And so, we're working together, and I believe you'll be able to give us the updated rates.
Yeah, by the end of next week.
Next week, so before we vote on this officially.
If I'm, I think it'll be a modest rate adjustment, that's pretty close to CPI, right? But we're still working on that.
So it's a reminder that this new rate does include, you know, the recycling built in. And it's my understanding that Recology won't be offering standalone recycling service, that somebody would have to have garbage in order to get the recycling. With waste management, they do have a la carte option where you can pay for just the recycling service by itself. But this fee up above, it's kind of confusing how I wrote it out, but that would be with garbage and recycling for waste management. And within your packets, there's the more detail because there is other services as far as, you know, how often they're picked up and stuff.
So really fast, you have suburban rural, you have rural residential, and then you have all areas.
Sorry, yeah, that's because this is waste management. They're all the areas of waste management. Sorry, after I made that table, I realized it was a little confusing. So
Okay,
this is Recology Suburban's rate, their rural rate, and then waste management's their rate for their entire area, then their recycling only rate over there.
So they won't be breaking it out into suburban and rural. They'll just be charging the whole area that is their clients, that same flat rate of $41.30 unless they choose to only take recycling.
I would want to make note that because Commissioner Thompson is not here and that does impact her area. Is she online today or is she not?
He's not gonna be able to.
So that we hold off on any decision making until we have a chance to.
Yes, this will be coming before you all.
Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
at a future.
And she did reach out to me. We're gonna have a conversation,
Okay.
just me and her, just to kind of update her on what happened.
Well,
I appreciate the feedback. Any other questions about the proposed rates or changes? So this is kind of the roadmap to the end of to the finish line. According to the solid waste franchise, the county manager will recommend the application to the board if they should approve it or not. We're hoping to bring that to you in 2 weeks on the May 8th meeting. If the board does approve the applications, then we would sign the official franchise agreement with a start date of July 1st. And then I think I mentioned, you know, recycling will be rolled out as fast as possible from that point.
So one other question in regards to the rural versus municipality rates. So can you go back to the other slide? Okay, thank you. So the rural residential rate, is that going up anyway, or the suburban residential rate, is that going up anyway, even though this doesn't impact?
Go ahead, Andrew.
So,
Go ahead.
sorry, suburban being the more, what is considered suburban in the unincorporated areas. So for example, I live, so for example, I live in a suburban because of the density of the population in my area of
Okay.
unincorporated Placer County.
Okay. I'm just gonna say Napa thinks we're special, so we feel suburban. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I would defer to you all in regards to narrowing it down, but you are rural, yeah,
Yeah, we're rural.
yeah.
It's okay, but
That has to do with this.
Miles.
All right, well, that's all I had for my presentation, and do commissioners have any additional questions or comments?
No, how much time before? I guess I would like to offer time for public comment. I mean, I always feel that way when it comes to somebody's rates being hiked. Go ahead.
I'd say when we bring this back on the May 8th meeting, it will be a public meeting with public comment.
Okay. Could we do a little advertisement prior?
Yeah, we
So
can
that
make sure that communications gets out, and at that point in time, and I defer to Anthony, but you know, it's an opportunity for public comment, and you don't have to vote on it that evening. You could defer it to a future meeting if you feel that you want to give it more time.
Okay. I mean, I love the amount of positives that could come from this, but again, you know, $8 is $8. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, that $8 could make or break your budget. So I just want to offer, a time frame for the public to provide feedback on their thoughts. So, go ahead, Chris.
So just to add to that, when you take recycling and add it to a program, ideally, it allows somebody to get to a smaller service. So if they can, that sometimes will alleviate that. Because you're used to throwing it in one can, I got through, hopefully some of it comes out and goes into recycling. So there's an opportunity to use the 60.
Okay. Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
All right, Dan, is there anything you want to add before we wrap up, or?
So happy, if there are any questions that come up after the meeting, feel free to reach out to us. I think both Mark and Anthony have our contact information. Katie's local, Chris and I are close enough local, just over the hill.
And I would just add that, Monica and Anthony have been very patient. Gonna get this rolling, we're gonna go through a while, which,
Monica, did?
I hear people over there.
Well, appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you.
And thanks for
Yes.
being here to see me. And this is a culmination of a long journey to get here. So thank you very much.
Good
Good work, everybody. Yeah, thanks again.
I didn't think county council knew that he was gonna be spending so much time when he first.
That was exciting, yes. Well, we have 38 minutes that we can kill before our regular meeting, so
That
we'll
is
go ahead and
great.
adjourn our work session.
We can slowly dismantle the nuclear gas. Quick round to get it all torn apart, so.
Oh, goodness. Thank you. for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thanks again.
Yeah.